We're going to start. I apologize for the late time. But we're going to go ahead and start. You notice that there are exactly 100 computers, but my guess is probably more than 100 folks here. So we'll have to double up on these sessions right here. So you could have a designated driver and someone handing out the instructions when you actually do some of the hands-on exercises. Okay? We will get you logged in momentarily. In fact, in the PowerPoint slides in a moment, you'll actually see the username. I will give you the password. We'll log in. We'll talk. We'll chat. We'll do some hands-on exercises. In the back of the room right now, we have some helpers. In case we have any issues logging into the application at all or any issues with the exercises, they'll be more than happy to help you and walk you through things. Okay, today we're going to talk about customization. In other words, what can I do with the application once I get it? What kind of changes can I make it to fit my organization? That's sort of the theme of this little 1-hour session. We have Brett up front here who's going to be nice enough to handle the driving for me. So let's go to the next slide. Okay, this is me. My name is Jim. I'm an instructor here at Salesforce. I've been at Salesforce for almost 4 years now. I've actually went through the certification. In fact, anyone here certified? Anyone? Okay. Well, we do have a certification program. We'll talk about that at the very end. If you're interested in getting certified, we do have some instructor-led classes too that you can take to get your certifications. We have certifications for administrators, consultants, and developers. Okay, let's continue. So this is our safe harbor statement. I'll say in a simple word, we're not going to talk about chatter today. Okay? So make all your decision on what is and not what is to come. But that's a kind of cool feature that we're going to get. Next. Okay, so as I'm talking right now, let's try to log in. You should be able to open Internet Explorer or your browser up there. It should point to Salesforce's login page. Your username will be admin at Dreamforce or DF09, customize 1, and then 3-digit number. That 3-digit number happens to be the number on your monitor.com. So on the monitor in the corner, in the upper right-hand corner, you'll see a 3-digit number. Use that 3-digit number. And then the password will be the word password, all lowercase, followed by the number 1. So password 1. What's that? Yes. Password 1. The word password followed by the numeral 1, all lowercase. Okay, and if you need any help logging in, just raise your hand and our helpers will be happy to assist you. Okay, let's go on to the next slide. Okay, so what are we going to cover? Well, let's take a step back and let's ask the simple question, what can we customize? If you think about an application, it's really composed of 3 major parts. There's the user interface. This is how we interact with the data. There's the database, so to speak, or the data model. This is where we store the data or we retrieve the data from. So there's sort of a data model aspect to an application. And then in the middle, there's this whole concept of the business logic or the business layer. This is what really makes the application do what it's supposed to do. With Salesforce, we can actually customize all layers of the application. We can change the user interface. We can customize it to fit our business needs. We can actually customize business logic to make it do things we want it to do. We can even customize the data layer. Now, we don't actually add database tables, but we add objects and fields. That's the terminology we use. So we can actually add additional objects or tables, so to speak, to capture additional information. So we're going to talk about what kind of things can I quickly set on the user interface for my org. Some point-and-click things. We'll talk about adding fields. That's like extending the data model. It's almost as if we're adding another column to a table to capture additional information. We'll talk about the page layout or the user interface. We're going to still be working with the current user interface, and someday in future releases we'll see the new interface that Mark talked about earlier. So we'll talk about how do I customize or rearrange or rebuild the user interface. And then other things we can customize. We can even customize things like reports, and we'll take a simple report and make a simple customization. So out of the box, the application does work, but the nice thing about Salesforce is we can actually customize it to fit our own particular needs. Okay, so that's what we're going to, sort of the agenda we're going to do, and we'll do some hands-on work. So let's talk about the first thing. So as administrators, where do I go to actually do the changes or the customization? So let's go back into the app real quick. And notice on the top of the page there, there's some links there like setup, help and training, system log, and so forth. The key for administrators to making customizations is that setup link. And if you click on the setup link, it gives you 3 sets of menus. So if you're on the top page, once you log in, there's a setup link. It brings you to a setup menu. And we'll notice there's something called personal setup. This is information about you. Most users will have that. In fact, all users will have that. Then we can actually set up the application. This is where we can make changes to things in the application, like adding, modifying pages and so forth. And then the third set of menus is for administrators to set up administrative things like adding users, managing the data, and so forth and so on. Okay? So the key point to doing customizations is getting familiar with that menu path. Start at setup, you'll see the 3 main menu paths, and from there we can start actually making customizations. Let's go back to the slides. Okay, let's click on there. So there's personal setup, app setup, and admin setup. It's all point and click. You start clicking on the little plus sign, expand it, and it'll actually tell you what to do. Let's continue. So for the user interface settings, this is going to allow us to make certain changes to the user interface. Now, we're not talking about the page itself, but other things like, do you want people to do some inline editing? What I mean by that, go to Simple Page and instead of hitting an edit button, bringing up a separate form, simply click on a field, double click on there, make the changes, and save it right there. That's a user interface setting. Or, for example, you want to hover over a link on a page. Certain records, the value in a certain field is a reference to another record. By turning this thing called Hover Details, you can simply put your mouse over a link that's referenced in another link, and you get a pop-up what the other reference record looks like. Or something like related lists. Right now, to see related records, you have to scroll down to see. So if I'm on a particular record, I want to see related information to that record, I have to scroll down. This concept of related list hover links, that second red arrow, allows me to quickly see the related information across the top of the page simply by moving my mouse over a link. So these are actual settings we can make to actually affect what the user interface is going to look like for the entire organization. And the way we're going to get there, how do you think we'll actually get there to make these setting changes? What's the first thing we're going to click? Setup, exactly. And setup is going to take us there through and so forth. So let's continue. So in fact, let's try doing this right now. Let's actually go into the exercise and make some changes and turn on these things. You should have a separate guide besides this PowerPoint slides that'll walk you through step by step what you need to do. Brett's going to walk through the exercise too as you're doing it as well. So this is a hands-on training. So in the app there, once you're logged in, follow the instructions for exercise 1. We're going to turn on things like hover details, related list hovers, and inline editing, and we'll take a look at, once we're done, the effects of making those changes to the user interface. So let's take a few moments to actually do that. Okay. How are we doing, folks? Was that a hard thing to do? Where did you go initially to do these settings? You went to Setup, Customize, and where else did we go? User interface, right? And it was a matter of simply checking these things on, turning them on. Okay? And so, for example, as Brett is showing, we want to do the hover details. The hover details works also on recent items. So if you visited a particular record, you go to the recent item lists, move your mouse over there, a little thing will pop up. That's because we have hover details enabled. Let's actually go into a record real quick, Brett, since we're there. And notice now when you move your mouse over a particular field or the value in the field, for example, you see a little pencil icon. That means you can actually do some inline editing of the contents in that field. Simply have to double click in that field. You can make the change, then simply hit save when we're done. Okay. The other way to edit records is simply to hit the edit button to bring up a separate form. For simple changes, this could make life a lot easier for your end users. And then again, we're looking at this one record here. Notice what's across the top there. There's some links across the top. Those are links to related records. So instead of having to scroll down the page to see related information to this one customer record or the account record, we have these related list hover links now turned on. Simply move your mouse over the link, and we can actually see right there a list of child records. So these are some changes we can make to the user interface organization-wide. Keep in mind if you have any questions as you're doing some of these exercises, there's plenty of people around here who will be happy to help you and assist you. Let's go on to the next section of the slides. Okay, now, we did some simple things to make life a little bit easier for the end users on the user interface. We can also make changes to the data model or the data layer by adding fields. As you know, as you look at particular objects in the application like accounts and opportunities and contacts, they come with a standard set of fields. So out of the box, we can actually start capturing information about our accounts, like the name of the account, the industry they're part of, their location, whatever. But you may have a need in your business requirements to capture additional information. So Salesforce gives us a very easy way to extend the application by adding additional fields to objects. So let's go on to the next slide. So it's called a custom field. In other words, I want to capture other information that's currently not captured out of the box. I can simply create a custom field. And it's a simple step-by-step wizard the system will take you through to actually create the custom field. And one of the biggest things you need to know about creating your own custom fields is you have to ask yourself the question, what kind of data do I want to store in that field? Am I storing a piece of text? Is it going to be a number? Is it going to be an email address? Perhaps the custom field contains a reference to another record. So as you go through the wizard of creating a custom field, it's all point and click. It's going to ask you all these questions. What kind of data do you want in this field? It's going to ask you other questions. Who's allowed to see this field? It's going to ask you other questions. Do you want to put this field on the user interface? Okay? So it's fairly straightforward to add the field. The system will take you through the step-by-step process of doing that. Okay? So let's continue. So let's actually go in and create a custom field. And when we're done, we're going to simply follow the wizard through the exercise guide. We'll actually see the results right on the page as soon as we save that particular field. So again, it should be the step-by-step instructions should be in your exercise guide. A very lively bunch. Good. I like the chatter. How difficult was this exercise to do? How difficult was it to build a little drop-down list? Very difficult to do? Not that hard, I hope. Okay, if you go into the application, there's several ways to get access to that pick list. You can always, since we have inline editing turned on, you can actually go to the field itself, double-click on there, and you can actually see the drop-down list or the pick list. Also, another feature that you added something called help text. So let's say someone's confused. Well, what value should I put in this particular field? If you notice the little orange question mark that pops up there, if they move their mouse over the orange question mark, it'll actually display the help text that you added to that particular field. So hopefully there's no ambiguity on what data should I put in that particular field. And pick lists are a good choice, for example, for data quality, because you're forcing them to pick a certain value as opposed to doing some free-form text, and that can get very messy if you simply make that a text field and have some type in a particular value. Here now, simply pick a value from a list. Okay, so now what we've covered is a way we've actually modified or customized something at the data layer of the application. Even though we're not going to do it in this class, we can actually add brand new objects as well. We just added a field to an existing object, and that existing object was the account object. So let's go back to the slides and see what else we can do. Okay, and then we have this concept of a page layout. And again, we're going to use the existing technology. Okay, we're not going to use the enhanced page layout that we saw at the keynote. Now, we actually have two technologies to modify the user interface or the page in which the record appears. We have something called our page layout editor, which we're going to look at today, which is building the page or modifying the page or the look and feel, drag and drop where the field should be via point and click. But something to keep in mind, I'll put the seed in the back of your mind, we have a technology called Visualforce Pages. You can actually programmatically, through code, rebuild the user interface if you have some special needs or business requirements. And I think throughout the conference we do have sessions on something called Visualforce Pages. So if you know your developers or if you have some of the skill set in HTML and XML, you may want to consider visiting those as well. But the page layout is the way I render the record in the user interface. What fields do I want to show? How do I want the fields to be ordered? Maybe I want to create little sections to organize the fields to make it a little easier to build things. And we also have the ability to create multiple pages for the same object. Because perhaps here, this is a page looking at an opportunity. But maybe I have some sales reps that sell to the business. And I have some other sales rep that sell to consumers. So we sort of have this B2B type opportunity and this B2C, business to consumer type opportunity. And my B2B reps look at an opportunity in a certain way. They want to see certain fields. They want to see certain pick list values. Where my B2C reps who sell to the consumer, they also work with opportunities, but they'd like to see the opportunity laid out a little bit different. Maybe not show a certain amount of fields that are not relevant to their jobs, or maybe show only certain pick list values that are relevant to their job. So when it comes to building a page to display the record, you can actually have multiple pages per object. And depends on the business scenario what page will display when someone wants to create a record. So we're not just having one large page that shows everything to everybody. We can streamline the process, so to speak. Show me the page that only has the relevant information in which I need to get my work done. So we can actually build multiple pages per object, and there's ways for the system to determine, well, I'm doing a consumer deal, please show me the consumer form of the opportunity page as opposed to the business form of the opportunity page. So you have the way to create multiple pages. Let's go to the next slide. And we also have this concept of a record type. This is one of the mechanisms that the system uses to determine what page to display when someone wants to create an opportunity of a certain type. So one of the things this thing called a record type can do says, hey, I sell to the enterprise. I sell business to business. I need to see this business to business page when I'm creating my opportunity record. So we can actually create something called a record type. So when someone goes to create an opportunity, simply says, well, what kind of opportunity do you want to create? And we have a record type defined. I want to create a business to business. Well, that'll streamline the process. Now when I say there's a record type called business to business, it will say, okay, you want to see the business to business page. I will show you that page. Okay, that's only relevant. In fact, I'll even use this mechanism to filter all my pick lists. So maybe I have a pick list that has dozens and dozens of values, but maybe certain values on that pick list are not relevant for B2B. Maybe they're relevant for B2C. So the record type can also be used to act as a filter, only show those values that are relevant for the current scenario. So this record type can be used to choose the right page that displays to the user. It can act as a filter to show the right data that should be in the drop-down list. And the other thing this record type can do for an opportunity, it can take them through separate processes. Do you think the selling process to the enterprise is different than the consumer? Well, my enterprise selling process may be a lot more complex than my selling process to the consumer. So with the record type, not only can drive what page to show, what pick list values to show, but what process to take a sales rep through. Okay, imagine at Home Depot, you go to pick up a broom or a set of light bulbs. You're probably not going to go through a qualification process, a prospecting process, identify the decision maker, go through negotiations. The process selling to the consumer is probably a little bit more compact and short and sweet. As opposed to a very large-scale enterprise deal, you may go through a more complex business process to get to the final closed won stage. So the record type can be used to define what process you go through when you're trying to create an opportunity. So it's not one page fits all now. We're going to streamline it into multiple pages, multiple processes, multiple pick list values, and the record type as the mechanism is going to be used to actually display the relevant page, relevant process, relevant pick list values. Okay, so we can actually now, the opportunity can fit the particular process. So let's go on to the next slide, which is an exercise. And in this exercise, we're going to actually create some pages, and we're going to call them the B2B page, because I want to take the core out-of-the-box opportunity page and modify it. And modify it to the business-to-business scenario. Then I want to take the core opportunity and modify it to the business-to-consumer. So I'm not looking at one large, gigantic page with all kinds of information, what information is relevant, which information is not. I now will have a page that only shows the relevant information to get my job done. So let's actually walk through this exercise. The step-by-step instructions should be there. If you need some help, especially with the page layout editor, let me know. We have a question. Yes, we can apply this concept of record type for cases as well. I'm just using the opportunity as an example. So, for example, we can handle internal cases versus external cases. And we can have separate pages for those as well, and separate processes. How are we all doing? Okay. I know there's some mystery behind the record type and the page layout. Let me give you the Reader's Digest version of what this record type is, because in our 4-day instructor-led training class, we actually slow down a lot slower to explain this concept. But if you want to know what a record type is, it does two things, and two things only. It determines what page to show. So as you build a record type, one of the things it's going to ask you, if someone chooses to create an opportunity, for example, of this record type, you're going to map the record type to a certain page. So the record type chosen will determine what page will appear in the user interface. The second thing a record type does, it acts as a filter for all the pick lists on that page. Something I don't think we did in the exercise or not. So if they chose this record type, then this page will appear, and these pick list values will appear on all the pick list fields on that particular page. So it acts as a filter for the pick list. It also determines what page to appear. That's the only thing a record type does. Okay?
So in your example of an enterprise sale, so you have one record type now. If you said, well, I have an enterprise sale A or enterprise sale B, you create two record types and you have layouts accordingly, or can you do a composite record type?
Good question. He says if I have enterprise sales A, enterprise sales B, and maybe even along with consumer sales, I could actually create multiple record types. I'm not limited to 2. I can create 3 or 4 or 5. And then based on the record type chosen, I can direct them to a certain page or have the record type mapped to a certain page. Now the record type, 2 different record types could conceivably also map to the same page. Okay, so the mapping is determined on your business needs. So I can have 3, 4, 5 different opportunity page layouts along with multiple record types as well. So we're not limited to 2. Now we're going to show you, can we go back to the opportunity and create a brand new opportunity, for example? So I go to create a brand new opportunity. Just when you hit the new button, notice it gives you a choice here. It says, do you want to create a B2B or a B2C type opportunity? And depending upon, these are the record types that we've just defined. In fact, there's some help below there. If you define a description for your record type, you can give your end users a hint. Well, what does this record type mean? What does B2B mean? So they can read the description below. So if they choose B2B, for example, they want to create a business-to-business type opportunity and continue, it'll take them to the B2B page layout, which in this case shows a page with purchase order number with the credit card information removed off the page. Okay? So let's cancel this one. And let's go create another opportunity of B2C. So they create a B2C type opportunity by choosing the B2C record type. Notice we get a different page that shows up. This page actually shows the credit card information, but not the purchase order number. Okay, so we're kind of streamlining the process depending on what type of opportunity we want to create. So it's not one size fits all, but let's kind of streamline it for your particular business purposes so we don't have this one humongous page and reps are trying to figure out what fields to fill out and which fields not to fill out. So this is sort of the power of the record type, is to kind of have different flavors, so to speak, of the opportunity. It's still an opportunity, but we have different little flavors of it. Okay, make the life easier for your sales rep and end users. Any other questions before we continue? We have a question over here. Okay, the question is, well, how do I filter pick lists for the different record types? Upon record type creation, there'll be another, once you hit save for the record type, it'll actually show you a list of all the pick lists on that object. And you actually click into the pick list for that record type, and you simply say, hey, for this record type, these are the values I want to appear. Okay? So if you go into a record type definition, you'll see below there pick lists available there. And once you hit edit, next to that, you can say if this record type is chosen, for example, B2B, only show certain pick list values there. Now, in this case, you're probably not going to remove any of that, but you would get something similar to that and say, take those values off for that record type. Okay? Okay, let's continue. So let's go back to the slides. And what else can we customize? So we haven't really covered the middle section of an application, which is sort of the business logic, but keep in mind, there are things we can do that further customize things like workflow, approval processes, validation rules, and the like. So there are other parts we can customize. Now we can also customize reports. Okay, reports is a key element of an application because what we've done so far is made a mechanism for people to enter data into the application. Now I want to say, okay, people have entered all these records. I want to do some kind of aggregation. Let me report on all this data. So out of the box, we have a whole bunch of reports that are available. These are basic queries to the database. We also have the ability to create reports from scratch, but we can also customize existing reports. Okay, so let's go and continue. So for example, there could be an opportunity pipeline report. An opportunity pipeline in Salesforce simply means what are all the open opportunities that are not yet closed. And that's out of the box. You can simply click on that link, get a report run. We can also, even though this is a standard report, we can also customize the standard report. Maybe add additional criteria or ask for additional columns on the report. However, when you customize a standard report, you cannot save your customizations. You have to do a save as. So the standard report still retains its original definition. Once I go into a standard report, customize it, add a couple of features to it, maybe some additional filter criteria, additional columns, whatever, then do a save as, then it becomes a custom report, which you can do with what you want with. Okay? So you're going to hit the custom. Once you go into the report definition, you'll hit customize. It will actually take you back into the report wizard. Unfortunately, it's not the new report builder that they showed today, the keynote. I guess that'll come out soon. That's kind of slick when I saw that this morning. This will be when you run a report. You'll actually see a button called Customize, which will allow you to go back into the wizard that was used to create the report and add additional features like additional columns, additional criteria, maybe the order in which the columns appear, so forth and so on. Let's go to the next slide. So we're going to have you customize an existing report. Okay, and it's going to be via the Report tab. Instead of going through Setup menu, you'll go to the Report tab, find the report, run the report, hit Customize, make the changes, then you can always save it as something else. Okay, so let's take a few minutes to take this exercise. So how's it going? Did you finish it? Okay. For sake of time, we're going to begin to wrap things up. You should have created a brand new report called the Total Open Opportunities by Account Report. Notice the report, since it's a custom report, since you did a save as, it cannot be stored back in the original folder where the original report came from. The original reports out of the box are in standard folders that you cannot put your reports into our folders. You have to create your own folders. And point of note, you can actually put access control mechanisms on those folders where people cannot get into the folders where your report lives. Hence, you can control who actually can run your particular reports. So let's go back to the slides. Okay. So what did we learn about in this very, very short time? We actually have instructor-led classes. All this material came from a class called ADM 201. It's our core administration essentials class. You can actually attend those classes. They're taught all over the world. In fact, I think if you register today at Dreamforce, you can get a discount on those courses. Is that right, Brett? So all the material came from the ADM 201 class called Administrative Essentials. In fact, once you take the class, you're eligible to sit for the certification exam and become a certified administrator. Okay, and this is just showing one of the many courses you can do. So in the expo, please visit the training and certification booth if you want some more information about our courseware. Let's go to the next slide. Okay, so there's actually a course survey. I want you guys to take about a minute or so to fill that out. If you go to your home page in your application, so go to the Home tab in the application. So if you click on the Home tab, you'll see a few things, but if you scroll down, on the left-hand side, you'll see a link called Course Survey. If you click on the link, it'll give you a little form that pops up, and the course we're taking today is called Have It Your Way. Sounds like Burger King. Customize your org to fit your business. So that's the course you actually took in this session. Take a moment to quickly fill that out, and then as you're filling that out, we'll open up to questions and answers. Okay. Can I get one of the helpers down here for a moment? And can we have this other wireless microphone turned on? Yeah. Yes. You have to. I think you have to push it this way. There you go. Okay. I want to leave some time for, so anyone have any questions for us? Okay, we're going to bring a microphone to you. Hold on.
Is there a maximum amount of fields that you can create?
Yes, there is. The exact number I'm not sure, but it depends on which edition you have. If you have Professional Edition versus Enterprise Edition versus Unlimited Edition. there's an X amount of fields per object you can create. I don't know the number off the top of my head, but yes, there is. I'm not sure. It could be several hundred, I think, per object, but don't quote me on that number. Go ahead.
Is there a way to change a specific record to a different record type after you've created the record?
Yes, very good question. Once you created a record of a certain record type, there's a field that gets created automatically for you that's not put on the user interface called the record type field. You can actually put that field on the user interface, and if you're allowed to in your profile, there'll be a link called change next to it. You can actually change the record type to some other, and then a different page could possibly appear or not. That field is also updatable via workflow. So something happens and you have workflow in the business logic, you can actually change the record type of that record via workflow. Good question.
If you're on Professional instead of Enterprise Edition, do you still have the functionality to change page layouts based on record type?
Unfortunately, no.
Okay.
For Professional Edition, 1 page per object. Any other questions? One more question.
We received a recommendation a few years ago from a Salesforce advisor to not use record types on our contacts tab. Are there drawbacks in some cases to using record types?
Not that I know of, but did they give you a specific reason why not for contacts?
It was before I was there.
Yeah, I can't think of a reason why there'd be a drawback. I'd have to look at the whole situation. Okay. I'm going to stick around for the next couple of minutes, but enjoy your Dreamforce. It was my pleasure to serve you, and thank you for coming.